Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Trollheim with your host, right there, Rabbi Anibal. That's me. Welcome, everyone. So happy to be back after a little bit of wrestling with COVID, but I'm back. Back on my feet. A little bit of congested, a little bit. I was told it's going to take a little longer to clear, but hey, what can I do? Welcome, David. Welcome, Shelly. Welcome, Brenda. Happy American Thanksgiving. Yeah. You know how we call American Thanksgiving in Canada? Do you know? Call it Thursday. Yeah. Too bad it's a different time, so we cannot celebrate together, but it is what it is. It is what it is. But every day in Judaism it's Thanksgiving. That's why we the Jews are Yehudim. You know where Yehudim, the word Jew, come from? From Judah. Judah, Yehuda, come from lehodot, which means to give thanks. So a Jew should give thanks every day. For a Jew, every day is Thanksgiving. At least should be. Should be in the essence of our name. And yeah, we eat, the tradition, and this is funny, the tradition to eat turkey for Thanksgiving. And, I mentioned lehodot, Yehuda. You know how you call, how you say turkey in Hebrew, by the way? You know how to say it? Hodu. Hodu. Same root. Same root of giving thanks. So there you have another connection with the turkey and the Jewish Thanksgiving. Lehodot and turkey is Hodu. You don't believe me? Check it out. Check it out. But today we are going to go back to study the weekly Parsha. And it's good. It's good to go back into the cycle of the Torah readings. And we started the cycle from the very beginning with Bereshit, with the Genesis, the creation. We studied a little bit about Abraham and Sarah. Now, little by little, we are going to be switching to the next generations. This morning is going to start switching towards, you will see the end of the life of Isaac is coming, and then it's going to be all about Jacob and so forth. It's a fascinating story. So again, welcome everyone, and I hope you're having a great day. Here in Winnipeg, it's snowy. It's snowy. I don't know where you are, and I can tell you right now, it's according to my phone, it's minus 10 Celsius. It feels like minus 20. I don't know how much is that on Fahrenheit, but it's pretty cold. Pretty cold. Not inside Sharizedek, not inside the building, but outside. Okay, welcome Amparo. Welcome to the class. I'm going to bring the first slide and we're going to start studying together. Where I have it here. Yeah. Let's study a little bit about this. Okay. So remember that eventually everybody knows about the story of Jacob and Esau, the two twin brothers, that they were fighting each other even before they were born. Okay, eventually we're going to study that. By the way, people don't study, or usually don't remember, not that don't study, people usually don't remember where all the challenges that Isaac and Rebekah had before they were able to have these two children. It wasn't an easy process for them, as it wasn't for any of the patriarchs and matriarchs. Isn't that interesting? And maybe that is a topic for a different class, but how all our matriarchs were barren and they had to pray and they have to go through a long process of wait until they were able to have children. It's a very interesting thing. But now, let's see what happened here, because We have a prayer involved. And the rabbis are learning a lot about prayer, a lot about prayer because of this. Listen to this. It says, Isaac pleaded with the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren. And the Lord responded to his plea, and his wife Rebekah finally conceived. There are many things that the rabbis are going to say about this, but let me say something. Um, I don't know if this was the first time that actually Isaac prayed to God. We don't know. But this time, what it said that Isaac prayed on behalf of his wife. That basically God made this happen. Okay? It's very interesting. And we're going to see what the rabbis say about this. David Grossman, you say, Leah had, let me see. Leah had numerous children, but only one female. Yeah, she had numerous children until one point. Okay? Eventually, God stopped that process for a while because she started to get cocky, remember? Because Rachel, she probably was the arrogant one because she was the one that Jacob loved the most. Remember that? She's the one. Jacob wanted to marry Rachel from the beginning, and then there was this trick played on Jacob, and he ended up marrying Leah instead, but through trickery. So it's almost like the way God was dealing with their arrogance was through their ability or inability to have children. And again, this is a very complex topic and why God was using this as a bargain chip, right? Oh, really? You are like arrogant. You think that you are the best. You're better than your sister, whatever. You know what is your punishment? You won't be able to have children. It's interesting. It's anyway. Just wanted to mention that because I thought it was quite interesting. So let's see what the rabbis have to say about this verse from the Torah. Now, let's see what Sforno have to say. He said, even though he had been given an assurance from God that he will produce seed, we're talking about Isaac here, right? God already told Isaac that he is going to have a child. He prayed to God that the mother of his child or children should be someone who was meritorious, someone of the caliber of Rivka, who was present and standing opposite him. So, according to Sforno, this prayer wasn't just about having a child, but also about how can I say this? Because maybe he thought that the reason why they couldn't have children is because maybe Rebecca wasn't worthy of being the mother of the nation of Israel. So God already told Isaac, yes, you're going to be a daddy. You're going to have a child. But then Rebecca cannot have a child. So what he was thinking is it this maybe because Rebecca is not worthy and maybe I should marry somebody else or to get somebody else the way my father did, remember, with Hagar. That ended up in the disaster. We are still paying the consequences of that misunderstanding until this day, right? But here, it seems that Forno understands that maybe Isaac wasn't so sure that maybe God approval of Rebecca. So God was asking just not for a child, because God already promised a child, but please make it through Rebecca. Because he thought Rebecca was amazing and he thought maybe God couldn't see her the way Isaac was seeing Rebecca. Welcome, Maria. Welcome to the class. Thank you for your blessings. And again, at any time, if you have any comments about what I'm reading or what I'm saying, please let me know, because these are coming from other rabbis. So I want to know what you think about this. Let's continue. So let me go back in Hebrew. So I want to, here it says, Vayeter Yitzchak Ladonai lenochach ishto, ki yakarahi, vayitaer lo Adonai vatar Rivka. Okay, so Rivka ishto. Here, go back to the word lenochach, that word, right, that we have here, lenochach, is translated as on behalf here, on behalf. Lenochach. If you can see the trope there, if you read Hebrew, the trope is telling you where to put the accent, not just how to sing it, but where to put the accent. It's not lenochach, it's lenochach. Okay, on behalf. Why was it necessary to pray on behalf of her? Couldn't Rivka pray to God? She was incapable to pray to God, that Isaac has to come and pray on her behalf? It's a very interesting question. So let's see what the rabbis say about this. Here we read, the word lenochach is often translated as on behalf. That means that Isaac pray on behalf of his wife. However, and this is what it gets interesting, it could be translated as together, meaning that just as Rivka was barren, so too was Isaac. And thus, both Isaac and Rivka beseeched God for a child. As Rashi notes in his commentary to the Chumash, to the Bible, this one stood in this corner and prayed, and this one stood in that corner and prayed. So, in other words, this is a beautiful understanding. It said, don't read on behalf, but read as together. Together. They prayed to God together, each one in their own words. Because when you come to God to pray, you bring your own feelings, your own mindset, and so forth. So that's why it's interesting to say that the rabbis understand that they didn't impose on each other a way of praying, but everybody prayed their own way, with their own words, their own style, to have a child. And this is something interesting, and I'm glad that is addressed here by the rabbis, the concept of being pregnant together. That it wasn't always in this. I will say in this generation, it's more and more common to hear that, right? When a couple they said, "Oh, we are pregnant," that is something that they do it together. Back in the day, it used to be, "Yeah, my wife is pregnant," right? And my wife has to stay home, and with lots of restrictions of things that she can do because she's pregnant, and now I can go and do whatever I want. Hopefully that's not the case in this day. As I've seen more collaboration and understanding that the process should be enjoyed and also approached together, the process of having a child. I don't know what was your experience if you have a child, right? That if you feel that it was something, that it was a partnership, or I hope no, you have to deal with that together, alone, I mean. But the rabbis here seems to understand that there is room to believe that they did it together. Hello, Jerome. Welcome. You're never late. You're never late. The party starts when you come. Just kidding. So remember, if you can go back after the class to see what you missed. It's so anyway. We are talking about the prayer of Isaac to God to have a child, okay? And how all our patriarchs and matriarchs had challenges to have children, right? So I like the thing that they prayed together. But there is more. There is more about prayer. Listen to this. If they did it together, now the Talmud asks, why does the Torah say, and the Lord responded to his plea? Isaac. If they were both praying together, why only the prayer of Isaac was answered and not the prayer of Rebecca? Right? Well, let's continue with the Talmud. It's fascinating. He should have said them, Isaac and Rivka. And then the Talmud answers, because it is better to pray on behalf of someone else than it is to pray for oneself. Do you know this principle? Let me know in the chat if you know if you know about this principle in Judaism. The principle is that it's always better to pray for someone else's need and not for your own. In other words, you should have somebody else praying for your own needs. It's fascinating, right? It's fascinating to know that you should be praying for someone else's need and not your own needs. I mean, you can pray for your own needs, but the idea is better if you pray for somebody else. This is kind of pretty obvious and evident when we pray for healing, right? That why will people submit names to a synagogue so we pray for them? I would say, why don't you pray for, on your own behalf? Why do we have to do it for you? Because in the Jewish understanding of prayer, it's better when somebody else pray on your behalf. So if you are sick, ask somebody else to pray for you. And you pray for somebody else who is sick. That's where the tradition is coming from. So I wanted to let you know this, that is something that is inherent to Jewish theology, the way we understand prayer. So Shelley Chochino, what do you say here? I said, yes, you heard about it. Even when asking for Mishaverach, we ask the rabbi or the minyan to pray on our behalf. Correct. That's the way we do it. So now you know why we do it the way we do it. And that's why it's a beautiful thing is when you pray to God during daily minyan, when you go to the silent Amida, when we give the opportunity to use your own words of prayer or something like that, to have the opportunity to pray not just for your own needs, but for the needs of someone else. It's a beautiful thing. Because, and this, people are very appreciative when their names are mentioned. Yes, and I know that now we changed the rules to do it once a day, but we still do it. I think it's important. I think it's at least to have a moment to pray for other people. Judaism is, you see, all these cases that we read about, all the challenges to have children and other challenges, sometimes the common denominator is that there are people that they are, worried too much about themselves. And the idea is for them to start learning about how to relate to other people, okay, not just themselves. Very good. Shelley, also even for a safe journey, etc. Yes, that's why, of course, we pray. When you take a long trip, the right thing to do is to pray a prayer that is called Tfilat HaDerech. It's one of the few prayers that is in the first person because it's about you and your journey. But it's also a tradition, if you can, to come to synagogue so the congregation will pray also for your safe journey. In this day and age, that was pretty much reserved for trips to Israel. But if you want, you can do it for other people as well. And the other tradition, let me tell you something, or maybe you didn't know this. That is an old Jewish tradition to protect travelers. It's almost like okay, I don't want to say. Let me explain how it is, and then you will decide if you like it or not. Okay, the way we protect travelers is to make the traveler a sheliach mitzvah. You may be wondering, what is a sheliach mitzvah? Well, sheliach comes from lishloach, means to send, as an emissary, or messenger, or emissary. Mitzvah, okay, Mitzvah is a commandment. When you fulfill a commandment. So, for example, if I appoint you to fulfill a mitzvah on my behalf, because I can't, you become my sheliach mitzvah. Okay? And the rabbis believe because you being assigned the fulfillment of a commandment, you have extra divine protection because you want to reach destination to fulfill a mitzvah. So the way we do it in these days is, let's say that you know somebody who is traveling. You go to the person and you give them, I don't know, $20, and you said, I would like to make you my shaliach mitzvah. Take this $20 and then please make a donation on my behalf at your destination. Do you know that one? There are some synagogues that they do it with each other, that they make each other shaliach mitzvah as a way of feeling that you have this divine protection because you have to be alive at destination because you have to fulfill an important mitzvah like tzedakah for somebody else. Just saying, it exists to make other people a shaliach mitzvah. But it's all about this when you do things for others, right? Rather than do it for yourself. Now, listen to this. This is also from the Talmud. Okay, more about prayer. I wanted to talk a little bit more about prayer today because we don't realize that all that part of the Torah with Isaac praying to God for a child and everything has a lot of information about the way we should pray. Yeah. Brenda, you say, what a beautiful concept. Yeah, it's an old concept. I learned it in Chile. My rabbi there taught me about that. And every time that I will go to Argentina to visit family, he will give me money to make a donation on his behalf. And the way I used to do it is because my mother doesn't live in a Jewish area, but I used to go there quite often to, for example, kosher grocery stores. And they all have these pushkas there. Right? You can put money for different charities. So I will go there to get my kosher groceries and I will put in there the money. That's the way I used to do it. Or if I go to the cemetery, they also, to visit my father in Argentina, I will put it on the pishka at the entrance of the cemetery. Okay, so Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Hanina said the prayers were instituted by the forefathers. Okay, so this is the rabbis answering. Okay, how many prayers do we have a day? 3. Shachrit, Mincha, and Mariv. And they will say, why 3? How many patriarchs do we have? 3. Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So the Talmud is saying here, Rabbi Yosef by Hanina said, the prayers were instituted by the forefathers. Abraham established the morning prayer. Okay, Shachrit was invented by or instituted by Abraham. How do we know that? Because the Torah said, and Abraham went in the morning to the place where he has stood, Amad, before God. And then Amad, remember the Amidah that we pray every day? So Amidah is a term specifically used for prayer, as it is stated, and Pinchas stood and prayed. And this is quoting a book of Psalms. I love this. This is when the rabbis use the concept of Midrash to learn an halachic concept. Midrash in the sense of connecting texts, right? And remember that we have 4 levels to study the Torah. You can study the Torah through the Pshat, which is the plain meaning of the text. You can study as a remez, which is as an allegory, right? It basically, when what you read is not what it is. It's an allegory of a metaphor to something else. That's the second level. The third level is the midrash. So, and it's usually done by connecting texts, the way it's done here. So this is a beautiful way, a beautiful example of how midrash, or the midrash technique, or the midrash methodology is applied in the studies of the biblical text. Okay, so the Talmud is using that because it said here, how do we know that Abraham instituted Shachrit, the morning prayers, because the Torah says, and Abraham went in the morning to the place, okay, uh, which is also interesting because that is the also the biblical source to justify people who always sit on the same seat in the synagogue. Why? Because Abraham went to the place with capital T. Okay, it's implying there that Abraham went always to the same location, to the same place to pray to God. And how do we know that he went to pray? Because it said that he went there, he stood amad before God. What do you mean standing before God, praying? How do we know that? Connecting it with the verse of the book of Psalms. Okay? Brenda Grossman, what do you say? Pushka, now we have the blue box. The blue box was referred to Pushka, regular Shabbat. Yeah. Pushka means the tzedakah box, right? Or any, even if you use it to save money for yourself, I guess is a Yiddish word, so you still use Pushka. Okay? So yeah. Let's continue. Now Isaac established the afternoon prayer, Mincha. Why? Because it says, and Isaac went to meditate, lasuach. That's the word used to say meditate, lasuach. In the field when, just before evening, the end of the afternoon. Okay, still afternoon. That's why basically the rabbis say that mincha is better if you pray the mincha service towards the end. Why? Because what happened here with Isaac, that he went to the field to meditate, okay, just before the evening. So it's more meritorious if you do mincha kind of late. Just saying, this is the way it's understood from the text. Okay, now lasuach, meditate, is understood also as sicha, which sicha in Hebrew is conversation, but it's an expression specifically used for prayer. So conversation with God, not any conversation. Because why will Isaac go to meditate to the field or go to have a conversation in the field? Doesn't make any sense. I guess even in this case, the context is giving you a clue that he went to pray to God. Okay, to have a conversation with God, if you want to understand it that way. So, and also said the Talmud that Jacob, established the evening prayer, as it says, and Yaakov Vaifga reached the place and he slept there because the sun has set. So, first thing you understand from that verse, it was night because the sun had set. Okay? And the word used is vaifga. The word used to tell us that he reached the place. Okay? And pegia is a term specifically also used for prayer. Okay? So, what it says, vaifga, and it also used the word makom, but in that case also some rabbis understand makom is one of the names of God. So he reached the makom, he reached God. And so that's why it's understood that Jacob prayed to God before going to sleep. So it was at night, so he instituted symbolically the evening prayers. So this is to let us know, in other words, that every time of the year is proper to pray. I guess this is how everything started, because otherwise you will say, if the only reference we have about praying in the Torah is Abraham praying in the morning, so you will think, okay, so the only time we are allowed, or the only time we should pray to God is in the morning. Or vice versa. If the only source we have in the Torah is Jacob praying at night, you may think that the only chance we have to reach God and to pray to God is during the night. But by the Torah, and by the Talmud, pointing out that the patriarchs, the three patriarchs, prayed morning, afternoon, and evening. This text is empowering us to pray to God at all times, that we don't have to wait for a specific time of the day to pray. And you see, this is what I was saying, even about Isaac, that the text implies that he didn't late in the afternoon. So that you see how you can still have the question, well, does it mean that maybe praying before that time is not at the same level? We don't know. At least we don't know specifically from the Torah. That's why I believe these texts are necessary to empower us, to pray at all times. So now, the other thing we have to understand is that there is a positive commandment to pray each day. Not once in a while, not once a week, not just on Shabbat when you come to synagogue, but it says it is a positive commandment. Positive commandment means you shall. So the commandments are divided into two categories: you shall and you shall not. So you shall, they are called mitzvot aseh, or positive commandments. You shall not are mitzvot, they are called negative commandments. They have nothing of positive or negative. There is no negativity on the commandment. It's just because of the way they are formulated. Okay? I don't want you to have any confusion with that. So it says it is a positive commandment to pray each day. Where do we learn that? Because it is stated in the Torah, in the book of Exodus, and you shall serve the Lord your God. They taught that serve means prayer, as it is stated, and you shall serve him with all your heart. The sages ask, what is the service of the heart? This is prayer. And because eventually the Torah commands that the service in the tabernacle was daily, so the prayers are also daily, because our prayers are like serving in the tabernacle, in the sanctuary. That's the connection. We learn about the daily prayers from the daily sacrifices, because our prayers are like a sacrifice, except that this is a service, or like a sacrifice of the heart. That's the thing. So far we learned pray for somebody else is better than pray for ourselves, for our own needs. We also learn that we pray 3 times a day. And we also learn that this is a daily thing. Okay? Let's continue. This commandment obligates each person to offer supplication and prayer every day and utter praises of the Holy One, blessed be He. Then petition for all his needs with requests and supplications. And finally, give praise and thanks to God for the goodness that he has bestowed upon him, each one according to his own ability. So this is basically a two-folded explanation that Maimonides is saying. From one side, he's perfectly explaining the order of the Amidah. The Amidah follows this guideline that he's saying. Okay, we start with praises, then we continue with request, and then we close with praises again. Okay, and eventually we wrap it up with peace, which could be understood as a petition after we wrap it up. But the rabbis justify that because nothing makes sense without peace, so they were able to do that. Welcome, Starburst Solaris. Can we? I don't know if you ever said your name. If you did, I can't remember. So if you want to tell us your name, you can do that so I can forget it again because I have a terrible memory for names. So welcome to the class. So this is the thing. So basically saying this is the way the rabbis wrote the Amidah, following these guidelines. Now, what Maimonides is saying here is, even if you pray alone at home, you still have to follow this this guideline. Okay, this guideline. So basically, you start praising the name of God, and you start acknowledging the mighty power of God. Why do you do that? Because if you don't believe that God has the power to answer your prayers, why do you waste your time praying? Right? So if you do believe that God has the power to answer your prayer, Say it out loud. Before you say to God what you want or what you need, start by saying, God, you're so powerful. Thank you, God, for all the times that you met my needs in the past. I'm very grateful for that. I'm very thankful for that. That constitutes a little bit of praises to the name of God. And then you go to say, God, because I know you can do all that, listen to my prayers. This is what I'm going through today. Boom. You go with everything. And then when you finish telling God everything that you want or what you need, then you wrap up again with more praises and more words of thanksgiving to God before you complete your prayers. How do you do your prayers? Remember, you have to say it not necessarily loud. In fact, the rabbi said that the best way of doing it is through a whisper. Why not loud? Because we enter into the territory that you may believe that unless your voice is loud, God won't be able to hear you. And that constitutes a pagan understanding of God. Okay? We believe that God can hear your whispers. So you will say, okay, so why don't I do it even better? Instead of whispering, why don't I simply think about my needs? Because in Judaism, that's not the way we do it. We don't think, because we believe that the voice is what creates. The voice is what creates, not the thought. Thought is the first seed, but it eventually has to become a voice. So you have to say it with a voice, audible voice, but it doesn't have to be a loud voice. In fact, it should not be a loud voice. Okay? Unless the rabbi said it is because you are outpouring everything in your heart with passion. And then, of course, don't start thinking, oh, it's too loud. Somebody will think that I don't believe that God. Well, no, 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 no. Just let yourself free and do it your way. But don't do it loud because of the thinking that if you don't do it that way, God won't hear you. Okay, that's not the way it works. Any questions, any comments? Would like to hear you. Oh, I like this. You can tell that I'm not using a green screen because you can see my bottle, right? That's one of the problems with the green screen. Jerome, you said even creation was spoken, not thought by God. Yeah, yeah, it's coming all from that place. But you have to remember that applies to your own prayers as well. But it is important not to say it out loud. The same thing when you come to synagogue, when you say the Amida, it should be, welcome Eric, welcome to the class. When you say your Amida, when you say your prayers, it should be a whisper. So you don't need more than that. And you also it won't distract your fellow congregants. Let's continue. Now, I love this guy, Aryeh Kaplan, famous Kabbalist, a mystic, a man. He was incredibly intelligent. Too bad he died young, and who knows how much more he will be. He will have revealed to all of us. So he said, prayer is considered the service of God similar to the sacrifices of the Holy Temple, which I mentioned before. The psalmist thus said, let my prayer be set forth as incense before you, the lifting of my hands as the evening sacrifice. Just as a sacrifice unites the spiritual and material by making a lowly animal the object of serving God, so does prayer unite the spiritual and material by making the request of our material needs a service of God. It is for this reason that, when it is impossible to bring sacrifices, prayer can be offered in their stead. As the prophet exclaimed, we will offer the words of our lips instead of calves. Okay? This was again the words of the prophets trying to bring comfort to the people of Israel at a time where it's going to be a lot of anguish for not having the temple. Today, I guess we got used to it. But you have to understand that for many generations, people really thought that they were going to go back to have a temple tomorrow. I don't know if you knew this, but for example, the communities in Babylonia after the big exile, the communities of Babylonia always kept, okay, always kept track of the lineage of Aaron to have priest, and also always kept track of the lineage of David. And they have what is called the Reish Galuta. The Reish Galuta was the exilarch. In this day and age, will be something similar to what in the UK has the chief rabbi. Okay, so Reish Galuta will be the one talking to the authorities, but also the Reish Galuta had to be somebody from the house of David, because if we will go back to Israel tomorrow, we'll have not only we can rebuild the temple, we have priest, but we also have a king. So Babylonia was keeping track of that, because so there was such was the anguish of not having the temple and not having the kingdom. Big thing. Today we don't think in these terms anymore, but this was written also. All this concept came at a time, like Oshia, who said, one day you won't have the temple, don't worry, you can pray to God and it will have the same effect. Very important. Now, let's continue. Thus, formal prayers were ordained in place of the regular daily sacrifices performed in the temple in Jerusalem, which themselves were accompanied by prayer and song. So basically what Aryeh Kaplan is saying here is that, also don't believe that back in the days all they did was to sacrifice animals. God, no. They also accompanied the sacrifices with prayers. Otherwise, why would you bring an animal to the temple? Right? You will use that opportunity to feel the stronger connection with God and to elevate some prayers at that time. So there was the precedent of prayer. It wasn't just the sacrifices. So, moreover, the prayer of a sincere heart is better than any sacrifice. As the psalmist also exclaimed, I will praise the name of God with a song. I will exalt him with thanksgiving, and it shall please God more than the offering of an ox. Why? Because the sacrifice is a mechanical thing. You can just, big deal, you bring a sacrifice, anybody can do that. But being able to articulate what you want to say, it takes a different kind of emotional preparation and emotional openness. So that's why the rabbis say, don't cry too much about the fact that we don't have sacrifices, because we have prayers. Now, the problem is, if you don't feel that you replace the sacrifices with prayers. Because what's happening in these days, the sacrifices are not there anymore, but neither are the prayers. Right? I mean, prayers in the sense that you separate a time of the day to do it. The same you will do it if you have access to the Temple of Jerusalem. I think it makes us think about if we really replace the sacrifices with prayer, or for some people who would simply discontinue the sacrifices, but they were never replaced, because prayers are not part of our life anymore. Unless you come to synagogue, or unless you're a person who does dedicate time for prayer. I don't know. Maybe you are. Let's continue. Now, I want to talk more about the concept of prayer. How do we say prayer in Hebrew? It's tefillah. Tefillah. So when you come to synagogue, you come to synagogue lehit palel. That's the verb we use to pray. Okay? Lehit palel. And now this is a very interesting word. Why was this word chosen to represent our prayers? Let's see. Let's see what Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch has to say about that. Hitpalel, from which tefillah is derived, originally meant to deliver an opinion about oneself. Okay? To judge oneself or an inner attempt to at so doing, such as the hitpa'el, reflexive form of the Hebrew verb frequently denotes. So let me explain here what the rabbi is saying. He said, lehit palel, okay, is the reflexive form of the verb. So the root of the verb is pilel, pei lamed lamed in Hebrew. So we said lehit palel is a reflexive form. That means that is something that happens to you. For example, to get dressed, because you do it on yourself, to get dressed, it's lehit labesh. They all start with lehit. Lehit palel, lehit lavesh, for example, okay, to get dressed. So it is very interesting, and because if prayer means your connection to God or something that you say to God, why the verb will be reflexive, something that has an impact on yourself, okay? Because you can understand now how the word or the root pilel, right, is used also to deliver an opinion, to judge, or to judge. So lehit palel basically means that you are giving an opinion of yourself or you're judging yourself. And perhaps that's the whole idea of the concept of prayer, even before you tell God what you want. It has to be some kind of self-assessment on yourself. So let me continue. Now that I presented to you this introduction, let me continue. Thus, it denotes to step out of active life in order to attempt to gain a true judgment about oneself, about one's relationship to God and the world to oneself. In English, we call tefillah prayer. But this word only incompletely expresses the concept to pray. I mean, to ask for something is only a minor section of tefillah. Because you can ask for something only after you realize what you don't have. So we don't think about this. But the fact that you're able to articulate what you don't have or what you need, it means that you already thought about yourself. Wonderful concept. Tell me what you think about this. I would like to hear from all of you from the chat, because I find it fascinating that the concept of prayer is also reminding us. You see, this is the beauty of knowing Hebrew, because we don't pray in Hebrew. We come lehit palel, first to judge ourselves, and then we ask God for what we want. Right? Now, let's continue. The first of three things that a person must consider in order to acquire a fear of God is that he must know that he is actually standing in the presence of the Creator. Blessed be his name, and is noseh venoten, literally negotiating or exchanging with God, even though he cannot be seen. So in other words, you have to imagine that you're having a conversation with God. You have to. You have to use your imagination when you pray. We don't have other way. We have to use your imagination. Shelley, you say the hard part is judging oneself. It's not so difficult. I mean, it's not judging of to say, oh, how bad you are, how bad you are. It's about trying to realize what we need, what we lack, or what we did, what we didn't do. But it's also about paying attention of life. That's why if you are a person who pray the Jewish way and you understand the concept of lehit palel, that means that you have to pay attention to life, to everything that is happening to you. And then you will realize what you're lacking or what you have, so you can what you have, so you can thank, right? How can you thank God if you're not aware of what you have? Thank you, God, for your health. Oh, that means that you thought about it and you realize that you have good health. You're just judging yourself without even realizing it. Yeah. Let's continue. Um, this is the hardest of the three, namely, for a person to create a true picture of this concept in his heart while he's not at all aided by his senses. However, one who is of sound intellect will, with a little thought and attention, be able to implant in his heart the truth of how he's actually discoursing with the Blessed One. He implores before God and entreats God, and the Blessed One listens to him and is attentive to his words in the same way that a man speaking to his friend is heard and is listened to. Yes, asking for forgiveness first before asking. That is also a good way because that will push you to think about your daily mistakes, and it's good about it. Not to feel bad about it, but to ask for God help. It's a very good exercise. But here it's interesting because Rabbi Luzzatto, he was saying that even for this amazing rabbi, for him to constantly stay focused, understanding that you are in front of the best friend you have, that is God, and that friend is listening to you. It is an extremely important part of the prayer. Because if you don't believe, as I mentioned before, if you don't believe that God has the power, or if you don't believe that God is listening to you, why bother praying? If you pray to God, at least do the effort to try to picture God's power and try to picture God as your best friend listening to you. That is extremely important when you pray. To feel in your guts that God is listening. It's extremely important. Extremely, extremely, extremely important. And now, let's see, I can squeeze one more text here before we stop. It said the number of prayer is not decreed by Torah law. Okay? The wording of the prayers is not decreed by Torah law. And the prayer does not have prescribed times decreed by Torah law. Okay? So, in other words, this is all the concept of the services and the Siddur and everything. It's was a creation of the rabbis. Okay? So, if a person was fluent in prayer, he will make many supplications and requests in their own way. But if it was difficult for a person to pray, he will pray what he could and at a time he wished. Similarly, the number of prayer that a person will pray depended upon his ability to pray. Some people will pray once a day and some twice daily and others even several times. And everyone prayed in the direction of the temple in Jerusalem from wherever they stood. This was the practice from Moshe Rabbeinu until the time of Ezra. So from Moses to Ezra. What Ezra? Because at the time of Ezra, all this started to become more structured. And it was not up to everybody to do it their own way, but the Siddur was the prototype of the Siddur was created, and then the rabbis decided that it's going to be 3 times a day and so forth. So that's why I wanted to mention this, that before this time, the time of Ezra, that is the return from Babylonia, the big return from Babylonia. There was always small return, but the big return was Ezra and Nehemiah. Until that time, prayer was kind of flexible. This day and age, we have Siddur, we have a prayer book. We use the words there, but we are also encouraged to use our own words outside the services. So in other words, we should try to follow the service when we come, and when we go into the silent Amida, that we give people the opportunity to use their own words of prayer if they want, but the best way is use the words of the Siddur for the service, and then after the service is over, that time use your own words to pray to God. Okay? So, that's all the time we have, guys. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming, for tuning in. It's just great. great to see you all again. I love my faithful following for this class. It's a great thing for me to come every Thursday to share this virtual classroom with all of you. And I hope to see you all next week. Okay, next Thursday. And if you missed any of this class, don't worry. After I stop the stream, you can replay from our channel, or you can wait until tonight at 8 p.m. Central, where the whole class is going to be rebroadcasted, so you can follow it live again the way we did with this class. If you feel like the evening time better, okay. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Until next time.